Hello, this is Nathan, better known as CrazyhermitDM, and this is my podcast, The Hermit's Homebrew. Joining me today is Brent from Lang Mini Studios and Chase, better known as Kilk, as well as Sam and Connor from Rolling with Story, as we talk about Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop gaming. What's like the most satisfying ending that you guys have ever played in your campaign run? I guess that's stuck with you.
The ending to campaign 2, Connor, that we were talking about was really, really cool, where Magni, the Four-Finger King we were talking about earlier, had essentially his primary servant called Zagar, who was this mega ultra wizard, who was the end boss. We were fighting him off and we killed Zagar, and then Zagar's grand plan essentially was to open a bunch of portals so Magni could basically just come through. And that was just end game. There was nothing we could do. If Magni got through, there's genuinely nothing we could do to kill him. And his four-fingered hand is like leaning down through the sky. We're on top of this massive like castle. And we all basically had to ascend at that point. We were all at the sort of level of godhood. We were all sort of like round about there, and we all basically had to ascend to godhood at that moment and do this big energy blast up towards Magni's hand, and then basically push his hand back through the gap, which is what we did. And the coolest part was the campaign ended, and Colin was like, "Yeah, okay, guys, that's awesome. So cool. I've got a really cool plan for the next campaign. The next campaign, you guys are all the Pantheon. So what's your character? Give me 3 things your character wants to do, and then you're the Pantheon next campaign." And that was insane.
Oh, wow.
All of us were then had new characters, and none of us wanted to be the guy that had their next character related to their old one. So all of us sort of were like, "I'm going to pick your character. I'm going to worship your character," and then we all did this sort of crossover little fun time. It was really good. But that was super, super satisfying. We all ended on a mega power thing. We achieved what we wanted to achieve. We lost people along the way. It was really that was really perfect for me. That one was awesome.
DM wise, with that one, what I really enjoyed is I put this NPC in the party about midway through. Who was like a little girl, and she didn't really speak. And one of the characters befriended her and became like a father figure to her, and everyone kind of loved her, and they were like, "Oh yeah," and she was protected by this giant white wolf who was like the king of the wolves. And then by the end, it was revealed that she was the spirit of the world itself, and they had to push their power through her, like Fifth Element style. Anyone see?
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Through her, like make this being to push Magni back, and and it would kill her, and everyone knew that it would.
Final Fantasy X.
Oh yeah.
She is the girl. Yeah.
Oh, the main character in that,
Yeah.
And then the father figure literally had to push the power in and destroy her, and then Sam's character at the same time was also rising into the air and like disintegrating at the same time, and there was
disintegrating.
Oh wow!
It's good times. Everyone dying, and then because everyone else kind of died in the thing, it was two heroes were left, but they were the ones that least liked each other because Herolgrim had basically blasted away his dwarf manatee. I don't know, like a dwarf but humanity, by creating the giant crystal tree of magic, and just removed himself. And the other one hated him, and they had this like little chat where they were like, "I don't like you, but I kind of respect you," and then. Divinity.
It was good. It was good.
That's gonna be one of those like awkward endings to where you see these two people that have been through so much. They look at each other and kind of nod and go, "Well, see you later."
Yeah,
it was exactly that. But in that moment, our friend Owen, who was playing Herolgrim, the dwarf god, basically, he said sorry in that one moment. He just said sorry, by the way, and then ascended. And then what the other character was like, "Sorry for what?" Huh? And then in the next campaign. What did he do? He basically broke all the laws of death, because the other guy was becoming a death god, and he basically trapped all the souls of the dwarven race and made them into like automata so they could not die, and cheated the god of death.
Soul trapped them. He Skyrim soul trapped all the dwarves.
All the dwarven race.
Kind of like Necrons or something.
These Necrons.
Necrons, yeah.
It was cool. And then there was the really, really cool bit, which was right at the absolute end of campaign 3. Where all of the gods who are our old characters started helping us to fight that BBG, and Herolgrim activated the Iron Protocol. 500,000 metal dwarves who just started marching.
Yes!
insane.
Yeah.
And Owen was like, "Oh my god, I've waited 2 years. Connor, can I do it?
I get to do it!
Yes, the Iron Protocol. All the leader. Press the red button. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that is so cool. Oh, man.
Oh, I was sick. Yeah, that was bad. Good times.
That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, it was, wow.
By the end of the campaigns, I get in this kind of DM headspace of just like, do whatever you want. Like,
It was.
Like, you want to make a dwarven soul army? Go on then.
Sure.
Oh, God, just sure.
Well, that's all about pacing, tone, and structure. That's basic. Like writing is like just staging the final scenes with dramatic flair. And then, if it's me as the dungeon master, and I know Brent's talked about the one thing that he admires most is just like I usually take some sort of concept and then twist it once, just to make it unexpected, or somehow in my mind it makes sense, but it might not to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Apu went from being a Batman anti-aberration robot into being a clay golem that absorbs aberrations.
So, in our campaign, our newest player at that, if you guys have watched any of the game discussions, is she's rose to divinity. She'll become basically the god of heroes and change and peace, as opposed to her twin sister, who's the goddess of war. And so after that, his character screws off in between the arcs and goes and makes, because they ran into Baba Yaga, the Queen of Witch. And he's like, I go see her. I'm like, okay.
Showed me a lesson.
Yeah.
That's the kind of been the running theme for my character is he's a wild mage satyr, so he's always trying to get a magic lesson from everybody he meets that does magic. Nice. So I make deals to that effect to get lessons from people, and I was coming back to her to claim my lesson.
There was a really cool scene that Toy Bar did, because he's always been happy-go-lucky or whatever. But he's talking to, I forget who he was talking to. Was it Baba Yaga? But it was like one time Toy Bar got serious, and he just stopped.
Yeah,
and we're like, whoa.
It was a little into the campaign. And I was like, everybody teaches Toy Bar.
And as I just looked around, I was like, he just got serious. Toy Bar is never serious. That was kind of creepy.
But he rolls it
serious a few times since
yeah.
He pours out his bag in front of Baba Yaga and he goes, I need to make something that will fight this over Aberration Lord. Put all this in it.
Yeah. So for
I
weeks,
want all
I
of
had
this
known that I wanted to
here.
do this. Yeah. So for like weeks in real time, right? I had known that I had wanted to accomplish this idea of utilizing all the bullshit that you collect along the way, right?
Smart.
And so I had, like star metal and rune worked metal, and I had this ancient spell inside the spell book that I had found, and like just things that I was probably never going to use. And so for weeks I was like, what do I want to do? I want to make some kind of thing that's going to help us fight the big bad, because that's what we're getting ready to go to. And I ended up coming up with, I want to make some kind of like being, some kind of like robot maybe that's going to help us, because my buddy Gilvickle, my good friend Gilvickle, he's like the only artificer in the lore right now. And so he works with like mechanical golems and stuff like that. Like he knows soul golems. And I'm like, what if I get Gilvickle and Baba Yaga together to come up with some cool stuff? Because I saw her flesh golem when we were at her camp. And I'm like, they can probably come up with something cool to help us fight this big bad guy. And I drew it out with all the items that I had on me. And I drew a picture at the table, and I wouldn't let anyone see it while I was drawing it.
Yeah, he was being real secretive. Yeah.
Come up with it. And I showed it to my wife, and I was like, it's like Batman.
This episode's been brought to you by... In the age of sagas and songs, don't let your next TTRPG be left to the Norns alone. Let the fate of your character be carved in runes and cast in metal, liquid core, or prismatic glass. Let the players of your table wield dice worthy of Odin, Thor, Loki, and yes, Heimdall. Heimdall dice worthy of guarding the Bifrost with. Claim the glory of Valhalla with HeimdallDice.com. Heimdall Dice, the official Nordic dice of the Hermit's Homebrew podcast.
And then I just handed it to Nate. And he's always going to take it and twist it. And you found, I don't remember what it was, but you found something from like an old edition of D&D.
I had this plan for 3 to 4 years because this thing made an appearance in a previous game, and it's always, I'm sure you guys know if you've DM'd, you always have the one-off thing that you've always wanted to had push way farther than it is, but just never putting that in the toolbox. It will come out eventually.
It'll come up eventually. Yeah.
I liked one of my pastimes, especially at work, when it's like, because we're medical dispatchers and it's weathered, is combing through the old edition monster lore.
Nice.
Okay.
Come from like the first.
This thing
First
called
edition, yeah.
it's called an enveloper, which is this giant, it looks literally like a clay Gumby golem looking, just derpy looking thing. But this thing has the ability to this thing just takes them out and knocks them unconscious. It will fall on top of them and then start to absorb one of their higher stats that's higher than it. It gains one of that stat, and then it will take one of their traits or abilities that it wants.
So, but it loses, it can also lose an ability, I believe.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a conglomeration of everything it's ever absorbed. But it gets their powers, right? So, this thing looks so goofy, but since I did like use my blood as part of the ritual for them,
Oh my lord.
it gains a random ability from them because I'm a wild mage and random things happen. So it's very perfect, and it was very funny.
Oh, but it has so much more abilities that you guys haven't seen, because you guys just basically put this thing in a demiplane spell. It's like, just stay in here for a little while till we let you out for the big bad, because we know you're hungry.
We'll come back.
He wants to consume all of them. Like, that was the purpose of creating him, so he has this really, like, aberration hatred in him. And so my plan currently is we had the new goddess here make one of her demiplane spells, and we threw him in the box. And I'm like, all right, when this door opens, you're just gonna eat aberrations. Like, that's what's gonna happen. I didn't think about it when I said that. That means I can't open the box until it's time to like tell him anything else, because he's just gonna come flying out. And if he touches any of us, we get absorbed.
Oh no.
So like, name's Apu.
Yeah.
We've got a Hulk, and then you open
He's
your
the
damn
anti-aberration protection unit. And
Wow.
he's a wild, cool thing. It was very cool, but that's a great way that like you, as a DM, you take those ideas that your players give you, and you rule of cool it. Like Nathan does this all the time for us. He'll always find a way to incorporate whatever idea we kind of had. Just maybe not in the way we thought of.
There's been a couple of players in my past that obviously no longer play with me that I didn't want that to happen. And I'm like, well, this is what happened.
Yeah, deal with it.
There's a playwright Russian that's called, ironically, Chekhov, that says you should never put an item in a story that doesn't have some sort of value later on. Is there any been like thing that you guys have placed in the story that the players forgot about, and then it just paid off in the end because they forgot?
I think me and Sam are both like this. We love placing items with some type of value in, like sleeper items. We've always put like sleeper items in, for sure. Like the flame for your character as Siren was like probably my quintessential sleeper item. It's also like
gave it literally in my session 0 one shot. I had it. Didn't really know it was an item. Just thought that was how I became a wizard. And then by level 7 to 10, we realized essentially I'm the white wizard, and that's what I had the whole time. It was really cool, and it was like over a year of time before that came to fruition.
I got to do the DM thing of the power was always inside you.
Inside you.
What? Oh, it is. I got to do that. Chekhov's got Solus was a good one on my side as well. So I played Sam Solus.
Yeah.
And I had basically it was like a little mote of the sun, basically trapped in me. And I was playing a homebrew Titanic warrior, basically, which was a superhero barbarian. And through the course of like this one like power that I found that gives me my abilities, I started to see like visions and apparitions of like people, spirits, and they would like speak to me, or they would like impart knowledge to me. And then slowly through the campaign, it builds and builds and builds and builds until I realized that I have the souls of basically the dead universe from the last campaign inside me. And then my whole story arc becomes having to like meld with a universe of souls to become basically an omni omni-brain, omni-soul.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Millions
And
of people.
I got you good as well because the name Solus, Solus, I gave you in your thing, and then it was just an anagram of souls, and no one noticed.
Oh, yeah.
But ages, no one noticed, and I was like, is anybody going to notice? Like, it's a one let some point.
They won't.
Gonna work out.
Yeah. People will never notice that.
Like, Solus
Yeah,
Sun.
from the sun, it was like Solus. It makes total sense, and at some point I was like, and it all became clear that you've.
It was like a
soul.
Tom Riddle of Voldemort.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was cool.
I do from 4th edition. I converted over from 5th because I feel there's a certain narrative lacking with 5th in the later issues. Is the so I give them epic destinies to kind of like, this is where you guys will eventually kind of end up in the world if you guys want to take it somewhere else than what this is, but this gives you a framework of what to work off of. I've laid a couple of hints off in those epic destinies because I print off a page thing of like, you gain this at this level, and then it gives a little flair for things. But our warlock that's become this goddess of change and all that, because she's a splinter goddess, she her other half piccoloed her out of Dragon Ball. I'm an evil goddess. You're saying I'm good. I hate that you keep calling that. I throw every bit of good that's actually out of me, and that every little bit of good that's been splintered out of her turned into this character.
Oh.
Wow.
Like Boo in DBZ when he split off good Boo and bad Boo,
Yeah.
or the Piccolo
okay.
Kami
Or
reference,
Piccolo and Kami, yeah.
Yeah. And so
My brain went Rick and Morty, where he goes into the machine and then takes all the bad
that is
stuff. Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
what
Same gimmick.
Same
Yeah.
gimmick, man. Same gimmick.
on the like capstone ability at like level 20, it says spark reignited. So she's probably about 20 sessions of the campaign, she went towards this trial of Odin to go get another spark to become a goddess. And she got the spark and all that. I'm like, you get this spark, but you know that it's melded with the one that you didn't realize was already part of you because it wasn't reignited yet. And
Yeah.
Ooh, spark.
Yeah, so at level 20, she's going to get 2 sparks. So does that make her a super powered goddess or what?
Duality god.
Yeah.
Duality.
And I've like in my head mechanically like justify like my mind is like each spark is almost a god portfolio, like in Forgotten Realms how they have like 3 or 4 portfolios. So she basically gets maybe 2 portfolios.
She's Blackbeard in One Piece right now.
You guys watch a lot of anime. I am no.
Yeah.
He does.
I'm going to admit, he lost me on Black. So
The TLDR is basically in One Piece. You eat a devil fruit and you get this superpower, right?
Yeah.
But anyone who tries to eat a second one, their body explodes because they can't handle the energy. And Blackbeard figured out a way that he now has two of them, and he's like kind of going to be the bad guy that they end up having to mess with at the end.
Chase is also our anime expert. That's why we brought another reason we brought him on.
yeah.
Nice.
That's why you wheel him out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, Chase, do your anime.
Do the anime thing.
That's why I'm doing so well playing a pseudo chaotic character. Like I'm playing the playful wild satyr mage.
I like that.
Right, I'm a wild mage. So I guess I don't use the standard wild surge table. I have a surge table that has 300 choices.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So I have to roll a d20, and that tells me if I fall in one of 3 categories. And one is an extreme category, one's a medium, and one's a nuisance. But they're weighted, right? So like I would have to roll like a 1 to 4, I think, to get on the extreme category. So after I make that roll, then I roll my d100 to see what happens. And I've dropped fireballs on our heads.
Yes. Middletown
You know,
Square, we're all in a wagon. All of a sudden,
They were
out,
at the
and
basically the version of Mage's College from Elder
getting ready to
Scrolls.
leave.
And then this fireball drops down on their carriage, and like all the mages kind of look, and they just keep going back their daily thing.
Yeah.
And then one of the players goes, they don't react to it. And I'm like, you're at a Mage's College. You got to imagine this probably happens weekly.
all the time. Yeah.
It was a cool little like Looney Tunes moment. You know, if the explosion happens there, I'll turn to like black, and everyone's like looking around at me, and I'm like,
Whoops. That happens.
Shifting gears a little bit here. I did want to ask you guys just a couple, because you guys have both dungeon mastered. We've all five of us have dungeon mastered. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble here, but
I don't like how this is started.
Yeah,
yes.
Right?
What do you guys feel, at least maybe among your home group or maybe even just the community, is the biggest weakness among your group that as a dungeon master you like to take advantage of?
Yeah. Mine is, at the moment, mine last campaign 3, was naivety. I had 2 new players. I had a mix between veteran. I had half veteran, half new, and that was just gorgeous. I just love, like, Grell appears again, my Faustian devil, and goes, "I'm going to make a deal." And all the veteran players are like, just don't do it, just don't. And they're like, "I'll do the deal," and everyone's just like, "Oh, of course." It happens again. So naivety.
Because we were the guys that made the deal first. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love. Also, for me, one of mine is always like, no good deed goes unpunished. I like my players to be heroes, but I like them to be suffering heroes. I think suffering
Exactly.
is being a hero. So a lot of my choices are always, you do this heroic thing, that's amazing, but you are also going to have to pay this little price.
And we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast. It's like it fits into the original narrative of like the hero's journey. If you want to be heroic, you have to do heroic things, and you have to do that. I mean, you have Perseus that fights Medusa. He just doesn't go right into the temple to go chop off a Gorgon's head. He goes through trials, and he loses people that he cares about along the way in order to achieve saving the city from a giant kraken. What about for you, Sam?
Mine, that I like to exploit was actually also my party's biggest strength as well as their biggest weakness, which was party conflict. It was so easy to instigate party conflict, and they would, because we're such theatre kids, they would just be arguing for 40 minutes in character. It would be absolutely popping off. It would just be absolutely insane. They'd do it in front of NPCs. They'd argue with NPCs. Conflict of like instigating things like that was so easy and was so satisfying. But also, from the boss's perspective, it was actually sometimes easier to sow discord in their ranks for that reason, which was quite fun sometimes, is using their great strength against them. Yeah, it felt like an evil genius.
I know for me as a dungeon master, like probably the easiest exploit among my group is them taking the NPC's word just as is. And I've exploited it multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah, we got lost in the Underdark for a while because we trusted one of our NPC party members because he was off talking to someone else. And like, oh, he's figuring out what we're supposed to be doing, right? Well, they're talking about the plan. Oh, okay, yeah, that's good enough. We'll go do this.
It's a Dragonborn general. They were talking about the final battle plan for the thing.
Yeah.
And that's all he liked to fight. He wanted to know how the battle plan was, how they were executing He didn't so much pick up on the directions of how to get there.
So we go off and get ready for the expedition into the Underdark. And so we're like, all right, let's go. And so we're following him, and we realize, hey, do you know where you're going? And he goes, I'm kind of winging it. And we're lost. There's a big attack going on. And
yeah, the map was the literal mines of Moria.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we're just kind of, we have no idea where we're going. Oh, we're screwed.
And I because I'm an old gamer, it's just like, it's literally the Konami code for extra life. It's like up, down, down, left, right,
left,
right.
Left, right, yeah. And so we're just, that really kind of drove home. Okay. And I feel bad because Merrick, my character, has dealt with so many people during this campaign that have let him down, to where Nate looks at me and he knows my blood pressure's rising because I'll ask him a question and they will respond sarcastically. And I'll go, just give me a straight answer. Like, no, you haven't earned it. Earned a yes or a no? Come on. And so I feel really bad because I think my character, in character, would have stepped up and said, no, I don't trust anybody because everybody's here is useless. But I didn't. I let it go, and it bit me.
So that is one of the weaknesses of our party. Is and Nathan and I actually talked about this at work the other day. Our party doesn't ask enough questions. Like, there's a lot of times, like you said, you ask an NPC something and they tell you, there's no roll to see if that's truthful. There's nothing. We're just like, oh, cool. They said this, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
Why would they lie?
Yeah, we had a habit of that where we got into this role where we were doing really well against bosses, where we turn up, we'd smoke them. And then we just started, we called it the Alpha Strike. And we were like, every single plan, we were like, okay, so there's a boss in the castle, they've got all these minions. We were like, okay, cool. Alpha Strike, we could just Alpha Strike it. We could just spline in, just kill him, easy, smoke and take the items, done. Easy, home to tea, sound. And then we just Alpha Striked one too many times. And then we just got we went on the string of where we lost 3 boss fights in a row. It was horrendously bad, and we were all like limping out of it. It was awful. But then for the same reason, we just go, okay, so 2 + 2 equals Alpha Strike, and then that would be what we did every single time.
Okay. Start raising those health pools.
Yeah.
I like that unreliable NPC though. That's really fun. I love using unreliable NPCs to like spread rumors as well. I don't know if you guys do this as well, but like
you do that.
I do this a lot. I'll say like 2 truths and a lie. So NPCs will just sow loads of like rumors all the time, and like some of them because that's how stories are told as well. Like, so many stories in fantasy settings in medieval would be so many different types of stories with the same story. And just no one, and then your player's always just like, "What is truth? Like what? Like which one of these? We've got 3 different types of this unreliable story. Can we actually piece something out of that?" I quite like playing with that.
The thing I do love doing, especially this campaign, is, in all honesty, one of my big tricks as a dungeon master or game master is usually my lies are the ones that are most grounded in reality or the most in reason to where it's believable.
Yeah.
And then the truth is actually the most outlandish thing. Like we have a Dwarf Bard that was actually one of my former, my brother's actually former player character that they randomly ran across from in this campaign. He was just meant to be a cameo. They ended up picking him up as an NPC to travel with. And I asked my brother, it's like, hey, yeah.
Oh,
he's a bard. He should have stayed dead.
He died for us. Now, it wasn't necessarily his fault. He did just fall to 0 immediately, but he did die for us technically.
So being the good guy that I am, I'd ask my brother, it's like, hey, your character was just meant to be a cameo, but they picked up on him and now he's a traveling NPC. Is it all right if I play your character technically? It's 40 years later down our living campaign line, but he's like, yeah, that's fine. The biggest fun I've had is when one NPC tells a lie and it's most grounded in reality to where the characters don't really question it, but you have this bard who's also been in a previous campaign for maybe 20-30 sessions, and he's spouting off the most wild shit that just makes you look at him like, that's a lie, and it's actually stuff that happened in the previous campaign.
Oh my god, but they think he's lying.
Yeah.
It's like there is no way you broke into a vault of Odin. Didn't happen.
You have to understand that this character is a character that like got snatched away from us in the middle of the night by a giant wasp naked.
He was wearing his little heart print boxers, and he was asleep.
No.
These giant hell wasps came in and grabbed him and took him off, and we'll see it like, we gotta go save him. No, there's no way.
There was a conversation at least whether or not we were going to go waste.
It was
time.
Yeah. My character was nah, we don't need him. But I got overruled.
I just could not be bothered to run these NPCs anymore. Giant wasp comes, takes them away.
Yeah.
We did that to Lamoth. Nathan did that to Lamoth, my first NPC, because nobody really liked him. So in the middle of a battle, he had like a giant spider snatch him up and drag him away, and everyone's like, can't be bothered.
We all saw it happen, and he got dragged up down the alley, and like, okay, we'll put a pin in that.
He's the
only, never looked.
He's the only other sorcerer that Toy Bars run into.
He's wild mage. The only other wild magic sorcerer.
Yeah.
That dwarf bard that has been running around with us actually thematically fit into our party perfectly.
He really did.
He added a lot of comedic value.
Nice.
Especially with my character, right? Because my character is the aloof, I'm just casting spells for funsies. Random things happen. Oh no, like they'll be fine. It'll all work out. But the other characters are more serious in our party, so he never really had anyone to bounce these things off of without being annoying, I guess is a good way to put it. And this bard is totally down to just go with the most fantastical ideas. It's been a lot of good play back and forth with him, and plus the little mini quest that he did with Merrick's character.
Oh,
because he's like just got rid of Toy Bar, the guy that's just the most inept caster I've ever seen, and now he has this goofy bard who's like just creating, the most weird things happening to him. He just like can't get away from these goofy ass characters.
Yeah, because my character Merrick is a paladin of conquest and a warlock of Surtur, the fire god. So
nice.
He's very angry. He's very smite everything.
He's fire Darth Vader.
Fiery.
Yeah, fire Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And you do what I tell you to do. We'll figure out what's right and wrong later. Generally not figuring out what's right and wrong. Just do what I tell you to do. And so when I got Toy Bar and then now Flint, this bard, it's like a bad like cop movie to where you'll have a super serious like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Alien type guy, and then you've got Chris Rock, and you put them together,
or just the movie Twins, Dane DeVito, and
you just put them together, and it's just like, why am I always saddled with you? Why?
Such a good dynamic though.
But it is, yeah. It actually works out.
Because Merrick's always trying to confront the problem head on.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to go solve this right here. And then you have, like, these whimsical characters who they're face-style characters, right? They're just going to... The outcome might be positive, but it's going to be pretty weird before we get there.
It's definitely weird.
And it's been cool.
We'll go ahead and start wrapping up. I have one more question just to kind of tie it back to our original theme. Is there, and we'll stick with the NPC, has there ever been an NPC that's come into the campaign that you guys, and at least in your campaigns, obviously, that perfectly complemented the party, or just like by the end of the campaign kind of elevated the party to where they were part of the party?
For me and my
temporary
campaign,
ones. Yeah,
they're always super temporary in mine because I hate running NPCs. Because I'm so lazy. I hate doing it. I'd rather like watch my players play. So I have like NPCs that are on the periphery and they like come in and they'll help and they'll do something. I have like archetypal ones. So like I have the guide, which is always a kind of figure that leads the party on or helps the party through. But yeah. And they're normally quite influential. If I have to make an NPC that the party are going to interact with, I'll normally make them pretty like influential in the story. But yeah, I can't do like the in the party always ones. I don't know why it's like a thing.
That's the way mine always aims up to be a temporary. They just come in and it's meant to. They're supposed to leave at the end. There's always at least less than a handful of them throughout the campaign that end up sticking.
Yeah, they get adopted.
Yeah.
I mean, Gilville's been around for like 3 campaigns, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Damn, really? That's cool.
Yeah, he's meant to be a cameo in the beginning of this campaign, just like, hey, tying this all into one storyline, and
that's awesome. I had one that was like mega long term, but I had a guy that he'd frequently turn up to help the PCs out. It was in the first Cyberpunk campaign that we played, where the first half of the campaign was pretty much we're crazy smugglers and bad guys running around a cyberpunk city, and then it kind of became more sort of sci-fi fantasy, and then the second campaign was very sci-fi fantasy. At the beginning, when it was we're running around smuggling stuff and killing bosses of nightclubs and just taking over the nightclub, that was the vibe we were on. That was just the whole thing. There was this one PC called Robo-Reg, who was this incredibly cybernetically enhanced guy who I just spoke with a robot voice like this. And Robo-Reg came to their aid a good couple of times, and he was a very beloved NPC. He'd turn up, was way weaker than everyone else, would get spanked by the boss, but would just about make it, and he'd like cure wounds a couple of times and sort of help people out. He was like a cleric. And everyone just loved Robo-Reg. But I don't think he was very mechanically useful other than basically being like a walking health potion, was more or less what he was doing.
He also pumped us up because when he got spanked, he also fought the harder to save Robo-Reg.
Yeah, you were like...
One of my
everyone game, come on.
one of my favorite NPCs in your campaign, Sam, was like the Star Wars droid with like the one that's like a box.
Oh my god!
We stole one of these like droids from a nightclub, and I reprogrammed
it was like a bar droid.
to make it was like a bar droid. I reprogrammed it to make me like this one cocktail called the Greasy Green, and there were scenes where we're like back doors of like a hover van open, like firing at cops that are chasing us, and then the machine would be like zimzalabim, and like
here's a cocktail for you. Yeah, that was funny. Funny.
That sums up that campaign for me. That image of the van open, like
Yeah, we had a lot of goofy. There was another goofy NPC from that one was called Kelvin Zero, and he was like a surfer dude with a hoverboard, and he had like the seashell necklace. He was topless all the time, and he just hoverboard around. Yeah, he was pretty well. Lots of fun.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up. I do, guys, do the Rolling with Story podcast for anyone that's probably listening and know all that. What does the second half of 2025 look for you guys? Ooh. If you guys are allowed to reveal any sort of plans.
Yeah.
We're good to go, aren't we?
Yeah,
we're in a good position. We're about to go into season 3. We've recorded season 2.5 is kind of what we're calling it at the moment, which is sort of like slightly shorter episodes, which people are going to like, a lot of hypotheticals and stuff. And then we're moving on to season 3, where we're going to focus a lot on like interviewing people and that sort of thing, which was you coming on our show, Nathan, was our first sort of foray into that. And we're really looking forward to exploring that with some more creators. Hopefully getting you back on at some point as well. Yeah. Would be really, really cool.
I'm sure any of us would be more than come on.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Guys. Yeah,
the whole gang.
Super fun. Yeah, it'd be super fun.
Oh, do a crossover episode?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a pleasure having you guys on.
Absolutely.
Anyone likes Rolling with Story, check out their page on YouTube. What other platforms are you guys on?
Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're not on TikTok yet, but we're looking at it. It will eventually probably have to happen, but we're not.
So is your podcast only on YouTube or?
Spotify. Yeah. YouTube and Instagram are most of ours for sure.
For sure. For anyone that's listening though, make sure to check out lovely sponsors. Have a good night. Hey, tabletop gamers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Hermit's Homebrew. We come out with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends as we continue to level up and grow.